It is 3 a.m. on November 6, 2020. Across the country, the vote counting has stalled, and a digital chill runs through the infrastructure. Within the highly regulated world of American election security, one name mattered above all others: Pro V&V. This was the federally accredited testing lab that provided the final, critical stamp of approval, certifying the software and hardware that millions would use to cast their ballots. But what happens when the entity that guarantees security suddenly evaporates? The core mystery is this: why did the ghost lab that certified America's vote vanish from public view exactly when the scrutiny was at its highest? Just months later, the FBI and CISA issued joint warnings about foreign adversaries weaponizing the claim of hacked voter information to sow profound distrust in the very next election. The final, terrifying twist? The disappearance of Pro V&V leaves an operational void, a regulatory black hole where the verification trail for machines used in over 40% of U.S. counties has simply gone dark. The Gatekeeper's seal. This lab was the gatekeeper, the final stamp of approval that allowed these machines into precincts nationwide. Pro V&V was the body that signed off on what were described as significant changes to ES&S voting machines. Those machines, the ones citizens trusted, were running the software that Pro V&V declared sound. Over 40% of U.S. counties relied on that declaration. The very foundation of trust rested on their accreditation, which is managed by the U.S. Election Assistance Commission, the EAC. But the timeline bends sharply after the ink dries on the 2020 certification. While concerns over equipment integrity mounted, the entity responsible for auditing that integrity, Pro V&V, simply ceased to be publicly visible. The records, the testimony, the internal audit reports related to those significant changes, they became inaccessible, buried beneath a sudden, manufactured silence. This vanishing act is now directly linked to an ongoing lawsuit pushing for intense scrutiny of the 2024 results. The physical breach. The security standards for these machines relied heavily on one critical assumption: physical integrity. The MITRE report argued that attacks were infeasible, provided physical security was sufficient. But in the real world, theory crumbled. The Coffee County incident in Georgia demonstrated that unauthorized physical access to voting machine internals was in fact possible. When bad actors gained access, they could manipulate the software layers. The vulnerability assessment by engineers like Halderman uncovered flaws that Dominion initially claimed were theoretical and imaginary. These findings, which required immediate fixes, were tied directly to the machines Pro V&V had already certified as secure. The unsettling reality is that fixes for some of these flaws might not be implemented until after the 2024 election. This means the machines we vote on carry the unverified flaws certified or critically missed by the now vanished lab. The information warfare. The vacuum created by Pro V&V's silence is being actively exploited. Foreign adversaries are precisely poised to use any claimed system breach, real or fabricated, as evidence they have successfully infiltrated election infrastructure. This isn't just about faulty code. It's a chapter in ongoing, active information warfare. The goal isn't just to change the vote. It's to ensure that when the results arrive in 2024, a significant portion of the population believes the outcome was cooked, based on pre-existing doubts. These doubts are fueled by the knowledge that the certification infrastructure itself collapsed under scrutiny. If the lab couldn't secure its own oversight process, how could it guarantee security in the field? Every piece of uncertainty surrounding Pro V&V becomes a weapon pointed directly at democratic legitimacy. The silence and the shadows. The disappearance of the lab suggests a break in the chain of federal oversight, but was it a regulatory action, a corporate bankruptcy, or something more deliberate? Rumors circulating within these unresolved digital mysteries suggest a connection to dissents, hinting at possible internal conflict or whistleblower action that forced the entity offline. Who benefited immediately from the lack of transparency following the lab's vanishing act? If records were intentionally destroyed or hidden, the compliance filings, the internal test results, it implies a cover-up, an effort to erase the paper trail detailing exactly what Pro V&V approved right before the national security warnings began to flash red. The federal bodies tasked with oversight now face an impossible task: validating the security of systems whose foundational certification documentation is legally and physically obscured. The unanswered question: The threat is immediate, yet the body meant to verify security is nowhere to be found. We know the machines are widely deployed. We know vulnerabilities exist and have been exploited through physical access. We know international bad actors are actively looking for any sign of weakness to undermine the system. This puts the integrity of the upcoming election in a perilous state, resting on systems whose primary auditor is a phantom. The question isn't just what they certified, it's what specific documents regarding those certifications are now missing or unverified, leaving 40% of the nation's voting apparatus running on a baseline of trust that has, quite literally, disappeared into the ether. The silence from the ghost lab is deafening, and in the world of cybersecurity, silence is always the sound of the door slamming shut on the truth.